Thank you so much for joining us here. We have Rohin with us, and KPMG has been doing a lot of work in personalizing learning. Now, Rohin, this is the old saying, you can have any color you want till the time it is black. How suicidal is that today?
I mean, listen, choice is amazing, and whatever research and experience we have now indicate very clearly that people want a choice. But choice is also confusing. I mean, the pattern or trend we are seeing is that infinite choice, people are just giving up. So a certain amount of curation is important. So yeah, maybe not black, but shades of gray, man. I mean, that would work.
Awesome. So we would want to start by listening to you about this whole engagement you have done where using technology, you are personalizing learning for your people. And I believe you have a 19,000 workforce, so that's quite a bit of a number to do it. Because I would imagine this would have multiple layers of complexity, time, what they want to learn, the way they want to learn. So how did you go about it? What can the audience take back
So
from
I
your
saw
experience?
caveat here, okay? So it's not done. We started, we're doing a bunch, but we're still figuring it out. So let me talk about what we have done. Firstly, it wasn't a choice. Actually, I'll tell you an interesting little 15-second thing. 5 years back, one of our technology leaders, right, I walked up to him, said, dude, L&D has done amazing this year. Expecting a pat on the back, he asked me, Rohin, what's your biggest competition? I was completely dumbfounded. He said Google, because the point was that whatever learning does, scalable versions of that are available on the internet. So his question was that what is the mandate for the learning function now? So around a year and a half back, we started a project called Hyper-Personalization on a budget. This happened in the middle of COVID. The idea was to start building very detailed learner personas. That happened because everything went virtual, right? Suddenly classroom trainings and all of these other sporadic events, everything was online. The amount of data which was getting generated now across locations, across demographics was just insane. So we got into this project where we started using design thinking to build very detailed learner personas. So two things came out of that. One, we were able to build eventually very detailed learning maps. But I think the more interesting stuff which happened was that because we had this very detailed learner personas and so much data that we could start creating what I call segmented communication strategies. See, because for those of you who are in learning here, the challenge is not anymore providing learning. I mean, you get a couple of platforms on board, you have access to everything. The challenge now with technology, and we were talking about this, is that now you are competing with puppy videos. The analogy is that people are learning on their own, right? They only have so much time. Now, when they were in a classroom, you could shut the door, you could stand at the door and say, you know what, you've got to learn now. But now people are learning on their own. Assessments, virtual, there. So, I mean, they're not as smart. So the challenge now is to create personalized learning opportunities which really are able to win the competition of that, I have 15 minutes, should I spend it on Facebook or should I use it to learn? I think that's where the game is really changing.
So I believe now we have established quite a bit that why it needs to be done. We need to engage people. We need to make sure that we are grabbing their attention as against all these other different platforms. A question that I'd want to raise is that how should people think about it? So if I am responsible for, let's say, an organization with 3,000 engineers who are on construction sites and all sorts of places, or if I am someone who's responsible for, let's say, medical reps spread all around the country. So if I am in a position like that, how should I go about thinking about this? How should I go to a stakeholder and say, you know what, I need some budget because you definitely need money to do this. So what compelling arguments would you make and what will be the actionable insights that they can take back from here?
Well, I have an amazing beard, so that helped when I went to convince the leaders. I looked really wise. I put on my gravitas voice. But now, on a serious note, I'll tell you what I do and what I recommend. One is that start off with a maturity model. Everyone has a great idea. It's actually quite irritating about how many people think they have great ideas when it comes to like scaling up learning or stuff like this. So look for a maturity model which makes sense and first map what you're doing against that. So I started off with that. The second lens which I apply as a learning lead to actually have this discussion is make it very simple. You need to focus on skills which are critical at the bottom of the pyramid where you need to cover a massive number of people across locations. That's the easiest lens to apply, very easy sell. The second area where leaders will also agree with you that, you know what, let's invest in tech here, is an area which is still emerging, which are more higher order cognitive skills. Let me give you an example. Negotiation skills. It's a very high order cognitive skill. I have run those workshops, I've designed those workshops, I've sat through workshops designed by other people. I'm not happy. What I'm looking for, and I know it's happening, but I don't think tech has got to that point, is a virtual reality-based, game-based theory negotiation skill scenario, which actually mimics reality. And that is the future. I mean, when Matrix came out 20 years back or something, right? I knew that was it. For me, that's the maturity model, actually. I think that's what we are heading for. Tech has to catch up. So I do both of these and stroke my beard. So, yeah.
So let me ask another question. So when we think about using tech, whether for personalization or any other area, I would want to bucket it under three sort of technologies those are available. One would be around simple, low-tech workflow automation, which has a lower barrier to application. One would be around analytics. So you have the data like you have done for finding personas, understanding who works where. And then finally, it's about bringing some intelligence. As in, there are so many people out there who are talking about AI, and I would imagine that that's also another thing which would be helpful. So how should the organizations think about deciding where to invest? Each of these technology sets have their advantages, but they also have their limitations. So any insights on that, Rohin?
See, I think basic tech adaptation is unavoidable. All right? I mean, that has to be done. And I'll tell you the reason why I very passionately believe in that. We hire a lot of very bright people, and I'm sure across functions. When you keep making them do repetitive work, especially, I mean, I can talk about learning, we have actually dramatically changed the design of the learning function because we figured that so much of learning work, because you were not using tech right, is not learning work. It could be easily automated, it could be done by a platform better. I don't think that's a negotiable. Okay, that stuff you have to do. The second one you spoke about was?
Was about the use of analytics or the use of AI.
Listen, man, I love analytics. I don't understand them. All right? I'm like terrible at Excel. I completely zone out. Basic analytics, right? But I work with some very smart people. But I'll tell you this. I haven't seen a lot of very smart data insights coming into HR. I did speak with one of my global counterparts, and we worked on a project together. That guy got a data scientist to look at learning data for 6 months. Okay, and he said after 6 months of crunching that data, could an expert actually come up with insights? We don't see that kind of dedication happening. So that's something which I'm gunning for. But for that, you need to make sure that your platforms are capturing the right kind of data and the platforms are talking to each other. If that doesn't happen, then you have reams and reams of data and you're trying to figure out what to do with them. And the first one is AI, right?
Right.
I mean, listen, it sounds slightly dystopian, but I can't wait for the robots to take over. Okay. You and I spoke about this, right? I'm telling you what I'm gunning for. I believe it's going to, at least from a learning perspective, revolutionize how we function. I'm looking for an AI-based coaching platform, which completely removes humans from in the coaching role. So a coaching platform which blends the psychology of coaching, social sciences, motivational theories, and now imagine, right, coaching has been elitist because it's mostly focused on, as a very non-scalable thing, on senior leaders. Your platform does great things, by the way, but imagine, we have 19,000 people, okay? What I'm gunning for is people can learn whatever they want to. We have enough platforms. But imagine you're learning any skill, project management, and you are a exec, senior exec. Typically, you will not get access to an executive coach. But imagine if there is a AI-based coach which is really good. So you're doing this learning on your own, you're working with this coach, the performance acceleration we could, in the hypothesis, see is going to be tremendous. I think that's where the game is going to change with AI.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe coaching is an area where tech would have a lot of impact. As in, there's so many people who go to work today and they end up performing below their potential. That's a lot of loss that we have been incurring. So,
I think the interesting question is what is our potential? Because that's the other space I'm very excited about tech. I think measuring performance, especially in the pre-COVID world, was always mostly a question of, oh, the person is working here, or they really look like they've been spending nights in the office.
right.
So one is that the entire goal measurement has moved virtually, right? But now, if we actually start talking about the concept of potential and the ability of technology to actually measure that, I think that's going to be a game changer at almost a societal level.
Absolutely, because like you said, that sometimes it is difficult to understand how far you can go. As in, it's a little bit like that story in Ramayana where Hanuman was cursed that he is going to forget his ability, and then Jamwant comes in and reminds him, and then he could jump across the ocean. So it's something which we all need to figure out, that how technology does not only unlock potential, but it also guides us to finding that potential. So one question that I'm going to bring you back to is that how will L&D teams foster collaboration from businesses? Because one of the questions, and I'm sure many of you would relate to this, is where we ask, where is the ROI? We are investing in something, where is the ROI? But ROI is not just L&D's responsibility. So how do you do it? How do you foster collaboration with stakeholders, with learners?
So firstly, this ROI question has started coming up a lot more in the last 2 years. I think as firms are investing more in tech, suddenly I'm hearing a lot more of this ROI piece. Couple of things. One, we are working through a global methodology on ROI. So that's work in progress. However, currently we do a bunch of different things to look at ROI. One simple way to do this is we have built assessments. So in the last 1 year, we built, I don't know, man, like 60, 80 learning journeys on self-paced platforms. All of them have assessments because the basic binary yes or no, did the person get it at a recall level, is super important. So we're doing that. We measure NPS, especially in the last 2 years, because we were running so many of these 6-month virtual journeys across locations and across hundreds of people. We measure NPS. NPS is it's a decent indicator. So I look at NPS of specific interventions. The third one, and I know there'll be views on it, we do look at the GPS. Now, the learning experts might say, oh, Rohin, what does GPS tell you? GPS is a good climactic indicator, and most business leaders will take a look at it. So, good one for you to map. And then we have very intervention-specific measures which we look at. So, all of that combines for what I would look at in terms of ROI. I mean, I don't want to get into simple calculations or that, if you've done this in the classroom, this is how much it would have cost. We have built virtual programs around it. So this is how much money you have saved. But I will tell you what is an interesting thing we have started now looking at. Scalable virtual learning journeys enabled through tech, if designed well, can substantially cut down the learning curve for people. So I have actually seen a shortening of the curve between people joining us at a certain level and moving proficiency levels. That is a fantastic indicator.
So that would be absolutely exciting, because learning outcomes being seen on different platforms is what most people expect. Another question that I have is first law of motion. We all have inertia. How do you encourage learners to adopt? Because if adoption is below a certain level, all your efforts are going to be stuck over there. So any ideas to share with people about driving this adoption?
Yes, if you already haven't done it, do a diploma or a post-graduation in change management. It's really important. I can say that I finished one a couple of, 2 months back. Change management, learning and HR functions I haven't seen very strong initiatives around this. I keep putting that up on LinkedIn that you need to learn. So there are 2 things which I would recommend everyone should do if you're trying to drive tech in learning. One is learn digital marketing. Very important. You need to learn how to sell. And you need to learn how to sell in a hybrid digital world. Super important. I mean, I am at times shocked by when I get into discussion and people say, "Acha, so there's a website and let's direct people to the website." But I was like, why are we directing, and are we even looking at a click rate of what's happening there? So there is one. Second, we need to get much better at managing change. I mean, understanding your stakeholders, the context of the organization, the personal context for that leader, building an initial win, going ahead with a proof of concept, super important. I'll also mention two additional things. One, if you work in an organization where there are a lot of teams, very federated, then one thing which you can try is get an early proof of success, sell that. It's much easier to get tech transformation in if people are saying that, listen, they are doing it very well, why am I not getting it? Then the pressure is on you and you get automatic buy-ins. The second piece where I can say my team, I'm building that muscle, I would imagine most of the people would be better on that, is we need to be very quick in testing a tech, getting in, getting out. So I typically in my head look at a 3-month window. When we approach a vendor or when I get approached by a vendor that, here is great tech, in my head, the calculation I'm doing is, can I pull off a proof of concept in 3 months? In 3 months, I want to know whether I want to go ahead with it. Do I not want to go ahead with it? Or is it worth the effort? Anything longer, technology has changed. You've lost, you missed the bus.
So we only have about 3.5 minutes left. We'd want to take some questions. To sum up then, Rohin, are you saying that a CLO should look at their own org map and say, now I want a data scientist or a data analyst and a digital marketer along with the other conventional learning roles? Is that what we are saying?
No, absolutely. I mean, either he has or she has got to do it themselves or they got to hire the skills, but needed.
Wonderful. So we'd love to take some questions from the audience.
You can ask the moderator also, since there are only two of us.
Thank you so much. My name is Anand and I head the learning and development function for Takeda Pharma for the ICMEA region. So my question is, we have been hearing about this 10, 20, 70, probably now moving to 10, 40, 50. So how do you place now in the current context these percentages of classroom and peer and...
I disappointed a very close and important stakeholder with this 10 entire philosophy. She set me up on a project. I basically could not do anything about that. So I've already burnt my hands with it. But I will tell you what we are doing now. So when I look at the learning strategy for the year, I'm distilling the content, which is the theory part of anything now, to as little as possible. And it's definitely not classroom. My classroom time is only getting focused on stuff which requires a synthesis of the theory. So that would then start falling into your 20 and your 70 pieces. I am focusing a lot, as I said, on building an overall culture of coaching. And as I said, what I'm gunning for is coaching for everyone. That is it. So for me, that's where I think the game's going to change. On the 20 piece, right, and on the 70 also, I think there is a lot of play which is going to happen in AI simulation-based learning. I've been following the simulation-based learning market for 2-3 years. It's all right. But I think the closer it comes to doing the permutations which mimic reality and the closer it comes to the basic user feel comes to real life, I think the greater would be the level of effectiveness. Yes, I keep reading about something happening in the metaverse and some other organization doing something. A lot of those are good pilot cases. I haven't seen a very strong mainstream case for adoption, though, as of now.
Yes.
I have a question for you, Ashish.
Sure.
Since you said that you engage the moderator also, so just taking that liberty. You run a platform, right? Coaching platform. So the challenge that he spoke about in terms of, one, the personalization, right? So that's the biggest challenge, one. The second one is the adoption, right? How do you make sure that whatever platform that you have adopted is effective enough, right? So these two things on a platform, how do you achieve that? How do you help
Right.
Gotcha.
Thank you for asking that. I think that there are two things that matter quite a bit, and even at the risk of sounding promotional, one of the things we have achieved is to retain our users for 22 minutes per day at an average. So, based on that data, one is that how do you lower the cognitive load of somebody? If today someone has to keep on watching a video, even if it is just a 3-4 minute video, holding their attention is very difficult. So bringing that whole experiential thing on the technology platform itself, they're doing something they can immediately connect with, they're doing something that they can practice on the app, so that's there. And you need to bring at least a little bit of human intervention, because learning is effortful. And if you're doing it all by yourself, it can get lonely. So there is a lot of reason for you to abandon and go do something else. So I feel that lowering the cognitive load and bringing a little bit of personal touch, these are the two very important things. I think time's up. Right. Thank you so much, everyone.